Welcome to the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat Program with Rabbi Shalom Rosner. Tzurba is a revolutionary halacha sefer which guides you through over 300 topics in Jewish law in a unique signature style. In this weekly series specifically, Rabbi Shalom Rosner learns through the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat volumes, helping us all master the Halachot of Shabbat in just 2 years. Tzurba volumes are available for purchase worldwide on Amazon. And to learn more about Tzurba, or for those in Eretz Yisrael looking to purchase volumes, please head over to tzurbaolami.com. For more information, see the description below. And now, Rabbi Shalom Rosner.
Okay, so we are in the next topic of Muktzeh. We are in the second half of Shiur Vav, the sixth Shiur here in Tzurba Hilchot volume number 20. We're in the next Shiur relating to Muktzeh. We spoke about different categories of Muktzeh. We spoke about Kli Shemalachta L'Isser. We spoke about Muktzeh Machmas Gufo. We spoke about Kli Shemalachta L'Heter. We spoke about Muktzeh Machmas Chesron and Kiss. And now what we're up to is Muktzeh Machmas Gufo, undoing that status. What do I have to do? We're going to start with page 275, the second half of this year, designating Muktzeh Machmas Gufo for Shabbos use. What is it that you have to do to undo the status? We're going to talk about topics that come up all the time. You have bones, you have shells, you have peels after you use it, and then we'll get into the very lemaisa topic of graf shel rei. Graf shel rei, and that is the topic that something that is putrid in front of you to get rid of, that comes up all the time, taking out the garbage on Shabbos. So here we go. We're on page 275. So we just spoke about Muktzeh Machmas Gufo. Muktzeh Machmas Gufo is inherent Muktzeh. It has no use. The classic case is stones and dirt and branches and money, anything that has no use on Shabbos for you. So that is not allowed to be moved. You can't even move it. L'tzorach gufo, l'tzorach makomo. Not like Kli Shemalachta L'Isser. The question is, how do I undo that status? What if I want to use a stone as a door stopper or as a napkin holder? I want to use a stick as a back scratcher. What could I do? Is just thinking about it before Shabbos that I want to do that? Do I have to think about it on a permanent basis? But if I just this Shabbos, I have an itchy back and I want to use this branch as a back scratcher, right? So do I have to do anything? So that's the discussion in the Gemara. So the Gemara tells us in Shabbos Daf Nun, source number 43 we're starting with, that the machlokas Tana, machlokas Amaram, whether one needs to make a physical change in order to change the designation or not. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabba Bar Barchana Kamei Derav. Rabba Barchana said a bryce in front of Rav. Chario shel dekel. If somebody has branches, a bunch of branches of a dekel tree, shegadron la'etzim, you gathered them, you harvested them to use for firewood. V'nimlach laim liyeshiva, but then you decided, that what were mattresses made of in the days of old? You put a bunch of branches, maybe you put some type of cloth on top, and you lay down on it. So you decided you want to take these branches and you want to lie down on it. So what do you have to do? Do you have to do anything before Shabbos? Nimlach laim liyeshiva. Tzarech lakasher, says the Tanakama, you have to tie them down. You have to do an act. You have to do an act. If they're single and separate, then you throw them into the fire. But if I wrap them up and I tie them, then that obviously shows I'm going to use them for another purpose. And that's what you have to do, says the Tanakama. No, you don't have to. You don't have to. All you have to do is to think about it beforehand. You don't have to do any more than that. Ein tzarich l'kasher. Hu tani la v'hu amar la halacha k'Reb Shimon Gamliel. And the halacha is like Rashbag or Shimon Gamliel. You don't have to tie it. All you have to do is to think about it beforehand. Itmar, we continue. Rav Amar kosher. Rav says you have to tie it. Tie it down to do an act. Ushmuel Amar choshev. Shmuel says just think about it. Rav Asi Amar yoshev. Just sit on it before Shabbos. You don't have to do an act in the item. And even if you don't have this kavanah, if you use it, using it before Shabbos, says Rav Asi, is what you have to do. Meaning, take a rock and use it as a door stopper, or as a scratch your back with a branch, right? Yoshev afal pishalo kisher v'afal pishalo kishev. Just use it, even though you didn't do an act on it, even though you didn't think about permanent designation, you just used it. That is good enough. And most Rishonim hold like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and Rav Asi, meaning thinking about it. And if not thinking about it, at least using the object for its designated purpose. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch said. The Shulchan Aruch said in Shinches, remember Shinches is the siman about Muktzeh in Hilchot Shabbos, source 44. Shinches Sivchaf. Charayos shel dekel shekatatzam l'sreifa. Charayos, you have branches of a palm that you cut to use as firewood. Muktzeh hein bas l'tal talam. You're not allowed to use them. They're muktzeh. Right? The Gemara says in Shabbos and in Beitzah, firewood is muktzeh. Yoshav aleim ma'at mibod yom. But if you sit on them a little bit before Shabbos, that itself is enough of a changing the status. Mutter leishav aleim b'Shabbos. You can sit with them on Shabbos. Because again, you're changing it from muktzeh to muchan. Sitting on it shows that this is going to be usable for you on Shabbos. And surely, kal v'chomer, if you actually tied them down, then for sure, that's even better than just using them. Or if you thought about it before Shabbos, afilu b'chol. If you thought about that, that would also work. So that is one Gemara. That is one Gemara. But there's another Gemara. This is about trees and branches. That's what this Gemara was about. But here the Amoram discussed, what about a rock? What about a stone? I was just putting it all together, but maybe it's not so pashut to put together. The Gemara that we just had was about branches, and now we're going to talk about a rock. The Mishnah talks about if I have a barrel of wine and I have a rock as its cover, so how do I get the wine out? So the Mishnah is talk about tilting the barrel and getting the wine out. Am I allowed to pick up the barrel? If it's between barrels, then put it down and then tilt. What's the whole question about tilting? If you're using a rock as a cover, what's the whole discussion of Muktzeh? So let's see. Says the Mishnah, source 45, Kuf Chaf Hema Beis. Tanan Hasam, Evan shall be a chavis. If somebody has a stone on a barrel, Matal Tziva Vihino Feles. If I have a stone on a barrel, so I shouldn't touch the stone directly. I should tilt it. If I tilt, so then that's going to make the stone fall off. All good. Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Lo Shanu Ela B'Shochayach. So we're going to have two opposite statements about that Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says you're only allowed to do this if you forgot you meant to take the rock off before Shabbos and you forgot it there. You didn't meet it for it to be on Shabbos. Aval b'meiniach. But if you placed it there before Shabbos, bedafka, so now you have a muktzeh item and under it is something that's supporting the muktzeh item. What's that called? Another category of muktzeh, basis l'davar ha'aser. Something that is a basis for a item of muktzeh, which is on top of it. And if that's true, which is going to be the topic of the next year, really. So we're not going to get too much into that right now. But aviminiach basis l'davar aser becomes basis l'davar aser. Therefore, you can't move it. So Rabbi Yochanan says you could only move it if you forgot it there. Shochech. If it's meiniach, then the whole barrel is muktzeh. So forget the rock tilting, but the barrel is muktzeh. For Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, a different memra of Rabbi Yochanan. That was Rav Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Lo shonu ela b'shocheach. When do we say that you have to do this? Only if shocheach. Aval miniach, but if you put it there before Shabbos with kavanah that it should be the barrel cover, nasa kisu lachavis. Then it becomes a cover for the barrel, and then it's not muktzeh. Right? The first day was that the whole thing becomes muktzeh, even the barrel. The second day is that nothing's muktzeh, even the rock. Nasa kisu lechav is two opposite versions of Rabbi Yochanan. But my kamiflagi, what's the machlokas about? Mar savar be'inan maisa. One opinion holds, Rabbah holds, that you need a maisa. You need a maisa to change the status. You can't just put the rock on top. You have to do something physical to the rock, and therefore just putting it on would not be enough to remove the status. And the second version of Marsav, Lo Bina Maisa, and Rav Yosef holds that we do not require a Maisa. So this Gemara sounds like, one second, didn't Rav Shimon Gamliel say, didn't Rav Asi say in the previous Gemara, just Yosef, just use it? Just use it. So what's going on here? So how do we put together these two Gemaras? And again, even though the Shulchan Aruch ruled Lokula regarding the trees, like we saw up top, Yashav Alim Ma'ad Mibod Yom, we saw in source 44. If you sit on them, but everybody here follows the halacha l'chumra that you need an act. You need a physical act to negate the muktzeh status. How do you put these two together? Why by the wood? All you do is to use it, and while with the rock, everybody agrees no. You have to do something physical to the muktzeh item. So the Rashba understands, well, maybe there's a difference between making something permanently muchan or making something temporarily, just this Shabbos. It says the Rashba in Tshuva, in Aleph Tafshin Nun Zayin, the Rashba had thousands of Tshuvas about every topic under the sun. Says the Rashba, source 46, the Dafka b'shiach aliyos amedis lakach, v'lo shiach lo Shabbos bilvad, the ein ze yichud klum. If you're permanently designating it as a dvar muchan, so then that's allowed. That works. If you're permanently designating it, sit on it, you don't have to do a maisa to it. Permanent designation, that has a strong enough machshava to remove the status of muktzeh. But what about just putting it on there for one Shabbos? That's not strong enough. That needs a maisa. Says the Rashba, the dafka b'shichta b'lios hamedes lakach, v'lo shichta lo Shabbos b'vad ein ze yichud klum, u'beperik notel even shabiachavis b'alatzid pino feles. Says the Rashba, the Gemara in Shabbos kuf membez with the rock. V'yamrin and Allah amrefun lo shonel b'shalo hiniach. Avo b'diach has a buzz lover asur v'hasa b'meniach l'shaita l'chasosa mashma. Says the Rashba, the difference between two Gemaras is permanent and temporary. If it's permanent designation, so that's all you have to do is to think about it or to use it. But temporary designation, so basically this is still a rock. You want to use it this Shabbos, but it's still a rock. If it's still a rock, your little machshava for the Shabbos is not good enough. You have to do a maisa physical in the rock. So what could remove the status according to the Rashba? Either permanent designation or even temporary if you did a maisa to it. That's the Rashba's chiluk. The Ran says no, there's another chiluk. The Ran says there is between rocks and branches. Rocks and branches. Sometimes branches were used for mattresses in those days. It wasn't so unusual. They're only muktzeh if you cut them in order to use for firewood. But because it's sometimes muchan, it doesn't need so much to make it unmuktzed. And that's the difference between that and rock. So the Rashba says the difference is between permanent and temporary. The Ran says the difference is between rocks and sticks. Let's read the Ran. The Ran says, Daf Chaf Gimel, Amad Aleph, and the Daf Yirf. There are two Rans here you have in front of you. On page 277, we got two Rans. First Ran, Voli nire da'afilu yichud Shabbos achas nami mahani, against the Rashba. Again, that was his grand Rebbe. Ramban, Rashba, Ritva, Ran. That's the Rebbe to Talmud relationship in the Chachmei Svarad. Ramban, Rashba, Ritva, Ran. Again, the Ra'ah was on the level of the Rashba. He was in that generation. And his brother, Pinchas HaLevi, who some say wrote the Sefer HaChiduch. So the Ramban, the Rashba, from the Ran. So the Ran here argues with his grand Rebbe and says, no, that's not the chiluk. V'linir dafilu yichud Shabbos achas nami mahani. Even temporary designation also would work. V'ha even shal pi achavis da'asrinan b'meniach. And what about the rock? The rock on top? If even temporary, why isn't that good? Hainu taima lefi she'ein darka shal even liyachid osal kisi chavis. People don't usually use rocks. Right, you get a barrel cover. You don't use a rock. It's not so practical. But if it's something that's commonly used, then even one Shabbos is going to be enough. On Shabbos, rock versus sticks. The Ran also, Daf Nun Tesla based on the Daf Erif, you see the next piece. V'im Tomar v'yakayim alam b'chareo shel dekel shkiron le'etzim. What about the branches? V'nimach liyeshiva yashav bilachud mahani, just lying on them. Aval b'shlo kashav lo chashav, you didn't. So what's the difference between the rock? It's not good enough for the branches. It is. Yesh Lomar, says the Ran. The hasam shiny mishum dechareo shel dekel avidi liyeshiva umahani luhu. Sometimes branches they're used to sit on. Aval even lo avida kisu lechavis, a rock who uses rocks for covers to barrels. Umishamachi lo mahani bu anacha bibonyom. That's why it's not going to be good enough. So two chilukim between the different gemaras, the Rashba, temporary versus permanent, versus the Ran. Is it sometimes used? How hard is it to change that status? The Mordechai also quotes Rabbeinu Baruch. And then we'll see the Shulchan Aruch that says for a rock you have to do something physical, maybe baderech of the Ran. Masazi b'shem Rabbeinu Baruch harotz l'shtamish be'evan or be'bakas b'Shabbos, or a block of wood l'sgar b'hem adeles. You want to hold the door closed, or l'hakos b'hem abarza. You have to do something physical. So, Lamaisa, there is a discussion in the Rishonim whether designation of a Muktzeh item for a common purpose you want to use is sufficient, or you need permanent designation. What if you want to just use it for one Shabbos? So maybe, right, the Tanoim and the Kosh Machlokas Rishonim who we paskin like, some say designation temporarily is good, sometimes you need permanent. And maybe rock is different because that's less used in general. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Shin Chesif Sifchav Beis, source 50. Aser lachasos pichavis be'evenu b'makas. One is not allowed to just on Shabbos for sure take a rock and you need a cover. Just go outside. Let's say you need a I don't know. You need all right. You opened up you can't get your cork back into your wine bottle, so you go out to the yard. You can take a rock in. No, you can't do that. Can't do that. Oh, let's go by the sadella. So lahakas be'mavarza. You want to hold the door open. You'll take a rock from the yard. No, you can't do that. It's muktzeh, right? Avo b'shachash v'alivod yom aser. Says the Shulchan Aruch. Even these items like a stone or a bakas, even if you thought about it beforehand, aser elakin yichta lakach laolam. Unless you yichta, you did permanent designation. Rashba. Permanent designation undoes. Aval yichta l'shah bezu belvad lo. But it's not enough, just temporary. V'hani mili b'davar shein darka liyachta bakach. And now he combines kind of like the Rashba and the Ran. But this is only by something that is not the derech to use too often. Could go in hani to armor like the rocks. Aval b'midi to urche b'hachi. But things that are commonly used. Could go in the fatzia bo goes if you have a certain type of rock to break open nuts. Beyichud l'shabes achas sagi. But something like that, then even temporary designation would be okay. V'yesh mishomer shaloshna, and others say no, that there is no difference. There is no difference. You always have to have it for permanent usage, and that's the Rashba. V'yesh omrim sh'shorach she'eh bo shum ma'isa shel tikun mibod yom, and that's the Rabbeinu Baruch. So a number of different opinions. Obviously, best would be to do a physical act with, if I want to use a rock forever, I should sand a piece or do something to it. But there are those that say if it's for permanent usage, just using it beforehand would be okay. The Mishnah Berurah says, if you're using something that is commonly used by people out there, and to summarize, if you look in the Halachos of Muktzeh, Rabbi Bodner, he notes a summary of everything we've just said. Things that are muktzeh machmas gufa can be converted into usable utensils by being properly designated before Shabbos. How do you do that? With sticks and stones. Number one, physically altering it. Number one. Number two, designation permanent, right? Or either of those, Rashba or Ran, either of those are okay. And then, if you want to make a stone as a paperweight or to hold open a door, either to convert it by altering it, sanding it, or by deciding that from now on, the stone will permanently be used as a paperweight. So that's what it is. You have to either permanent or doing something physical to it. One may designate a branch for use as a utensil to chase away flies or as a fan, etc. What about, he quotes sand. You drink sand. Is sand the muktzeh machmas gufo? So it depends where the sand is. Sand on the beach is muktzeh machmas gufo. That's like rocks and stones. But sand in a sandbox in the backyard, so that's already designated as permanent toy. And there, you can't add water to it. That would be lush. That would be a problem. But just have, if a kid goes to play in the sand, do I have to stop him? So that I do not. Rav Melamed also notes another item, that flowers in the backyard, those are muktzeh. Even detached flowers, if I didn't do any, but if they're on my table, then I'm muktzeh. A lot of you move if you have flowers and water on the table, I can move the vase on and off. That is not a problem. That is, muchan for usage on Shabbos. Okay, now we get to a little topic that is kind of the transition to our next topic. We're talking about muktzeh machmas gufo. So what happens if I am eating on Shabbos, and then all of a sudden on my plate I have leftover bones of chicken? Or I'm eating nuts, and all of a sudden on the table I have the shells, or I peel an orange, and on the counter now there's orange peels. So what do I do? 1 second, muktzeh. It's not usable. Remember last time we spoke about frozen food. Anything that's not usable, inherently muktzeh. So what do you do? So what do you do here? So the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Chav Ches talks about this and says, whatever is edible for animals is not going to be muktzeh because it still has a purpose. Still has a purpose. The Gemara quotes Shabbos Kuf Chav Ches, source 54. Tan Rabbanan mitaltel ezachatza b'bnei shumachal etzviyah ezachardo b'nei shumachal leyonim. You're allowed to be mitaltel these types of items because they're fit for deer or for doves. Even shards of glass. Why? Because ma'achal and amios, they're ostrich food. Ostriches eat glass. So says Rav Shimon that's also allowed. Amar le Rabbi Nassan. You're telling me that any type of food is always muchan because some animal out there would eat it? Okay, what about bundles of grapevines, which is food for elephants? You want to say that's not muktzeh, and you don't live anywhere near any elephants. You want to say that's not muktzeh? Right? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, no, there are ostriches around. There aren't any elephants around. So Rabbi Shalom Rosner seems to say that it depends on how common the animal is. How common the animal is. Amar Ameimar v'hudisle namios. This only applies if there are ostriches around. Amar Avashi la Meimar, Elo dekamar le Rabbi Nassim Shugam Leo, Chavilis Bors Yitalta, Reshu Machal Apilim, Yesle Pilin, Emai Lo. Right? What do you mean? So the Shugam Leo should have answered, okay, if you have an elephant, it's good because it's good for elephants. So the question is, what exactly is the maskana? What exactly is the maskana? The Gemara implies that if one owns even an uncommon animal like an elephant, waste that could be given to the animal is not muktzeh. Right, these chavile zmuros. Otherwise, it would be a problem. And the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah discusses as well. And that is basically if you have an animal, or if there are animals in the neighborhood that would eat your garbage, then it's not muktzeh. Kol shu roi lamachol chayav ha'of hamitzuyim, says the Shulchan Aruch. Anything, any item that is fit for consumption of animals that are found, common animals, metalton also, they could be moved. And that's not muktzeh. And then you can just take it and you don't have to give it to the animal, but you can throw it out. It's not muktzeh. It has a usage. If they're only ra'ui for unusual, uncommon animals, so then it depends if you have those animals around. Right? If you have kangaroo food in Beit Shemesh, then it's not going to be able to have the status of muchan. But if you have kangaroo food in Australia, then it wouldn't be muktzeh. Im yesh me'oso min chaya of mutal talta machal haroy la'oso amin v'im lavaser. Right, it depends if that animal is right. So again, if it's food for matsui animals, fine, and if not, you have to have that animal. The Ramah adds, "Ulafizeh mutal talta latzamos." If you have bones that dogs would chomp on, then it's not muktzeh, right? And because there are dogs all over the place. The Mishnah Berurah notes that even though the Ramah says any bones that were nisparku me'erev Shabbos is for sure even on Shabbos, because then this whole piece of chicken was roy when Shabbos started. So, for sure. But if there are no klavim, v'mein klavim mitzuyim, boso makam, says the Mishnah Berurah, there are no dogs around, gam bofen zos latalta, then it would be muktzeh. And as a summary of these laws, the Shmir Shabbos says, source 57, Shmir Shabbos, klifos gal inim va'atzamos, she'enam achal adam, peels, shells, bones that are not fit for human consumption. V'yafla behemen ruyim, and even animals wouldn't eat it. Or afila ruyim lamachal behem, or even if animals would, but not the animals that are found in your premises. Elash ein behema mutziyah boso amakom harehem muksav asla taltalam. Then you can't move it. Okay, so what do you do? What if you have some shells? What do you do? But you're allowed to take them. You can take them out of your mouth. You don't have to swallow them. You can put it on the plate, and then we'll talk about soon. What do you do then? Don't hold all the muktzeh in your hand. Take out a shell, put it on the plate. Don't hold it in your hand. We'll get to that. But if there's any shell that has some edible items on it, you have a peel that has some edible, you just don't want to eat it, but it's edible, then for sure it's not muktzeh, because it's edible inherently. If you have some fish, some flesh of the fish or of the meat or of the chicken on the bone, so then for sure that's not muktzeh, because that is still has edible items on it for animals even that are near you. Malamed says Lamaisa in the Pnimi Halacha in source 58, Lamaisa, food scraps that no one's going to eat, fine. But in our places, most places, there are dogs and cats that would eat almost everything. They wouldn't eat shells and husks and the hard ones. So those aren't edible, and those are muktzeh, and therefore we have to figure out how to move them. But anything that any dog or cat would eat, so that would be not muktzeh. Says the Pnei Halacha. Psolas machalam sharuyala machal klavim olachatulim, the garbage of food that are roy for dogs or cats, eina muktzeh. Ki af shalabal hapsolas ein kelav v'chatu, even if I don't have a dog or a cat, kivan sheish be'ir klavim v'chatulim, since there are in the city cats and dogs, harisha psolas ruyala shimush ve'ena muktzeh. It's not muktzeh v'lachay not samosh eina muktzeh. Ki ruyas l'klavim. Psolas machal she'enim real machal adam. If nobody's going to eat it, like certain bones and shells, so then that's muktzeh, and therefore they have to be treated properly. If they could be used as, he writes at the end, as I know children would use it in games, like count up their nuts, and you use it for pieces in a game, that also wouldn't be muktzeh. So this brings us to, let's say you have something that's really muktzeh. You have bones of chicken on the table and nobody's going to eat it and no animal will eat it. So what do you have to leave it on the table for the rest of Shabbos? Nobody says that. So now we come to the heter known as the graf shel rei. Graf shel rei. What's graf shel rei? Literally, a graf shel rei is a bowl which they used to go to the bathroom in. So, but that is code word to mean something that is unpleasant, something's disgusting that people don't want to hear. So Chazal, remember the whole world of Muktzeh is an Issur D'Rabbanan for all the various 4 different reasons, 3 from the Rambam, 1 for the Ravid that we had. But Chazal said that built into Hilchos Muktzeh is the heter of graf shel rei. They allowed moving Muktzeh items if people find it unpleasant if left in that area. And that's what the Gemara says in Kuf Chaf Aleph in Shabbos, graf shel rei. The Gemara first originally had a Havamina that you could only move a graf shel rei indirectly by something else, but the Gemara ends up saying no. The Gemara talks about a case of an achbar. There was a certain type of mouse that was amongst the spices, and Rav Ashi said, pick it up by its tail and take it out. Vahu achbar d'shtakach bispar maki to Rav Ashi. It was found in the spice racks. Va'amar lahu nekutu b'tzutzisa v'avku. Take it by its tail and get it out. And the Shulchan Aruch says that also. Kol davar metunav could go and rei v'ki v'tzoa. Throw up and rei bein shalada bein shal tanagol. It's animal feces or it's people. Im hayu b'chatzah sheyoshvim ba. If it's in a place where people are, if it's in a place where nobody's present, then don't move it. But if it's in a living area, you can take it out afilu below kli directly. Let's say somebody changes a baby's diaper. Right after you change the baby's diaper, it's sitting on the living room floor. You have to leave it there? Of course not. Pick it up and put it in the garbage. Not a problem. That's graf shel rei. And one can do that. And the Mishnah Berurah quotes, this is the heter. If you have a pile of bones and shells, you can pick it up and put it in the garbage. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if there's only one, maybe it's not such a graf shel rei yet. So you can push it all together to make it into one. We'll see about that. You could move it because that's a graf shel rei for him. And there are other examples the Aruch HaShabbos give of a graf shel rei, including the garbage. The garbage gets full in the kitchen. You can take it outside. Why? Because that's graf shel rei. Big Gemara Poskim Matzinu, says the Aruch HaShabbos, page 284, number 62. Big Gemara Poskim Matzinu Dugmos Shonos Shel Dvarim HaKalulim Beheter graf shel rei. We find various items that are included. Kagon, achbar, mesa, dead animal. Tsoa, kosos, yain, mudachos, dirty dishes. Garine tamarshas kapsul yachad. You have pits of dates. V'yesha kashu shem yoshev besukkah v'kismi haschach no shemarbe. You have the pieces of the wood of the schach are falling onto your table. V'yesh biposkis manenu shehoru shekol shapsolas hanimsos ala shulchan goreth al bayis on imas gedola hari bechal heter. If there's any type of psolas, any type of garbage of that stuff I don't want on the table, that's graf shel rei. That's graf shel rei. And then he talks sakio nylon. What about garbage? So he says, if it smells bad, for sure. If it's full, for sure. If it's not full, that's not good. Piskei Tshuva says maybe if the garbage is only half full, and it doesn't bother you so much, then maybe it's not graf shel rei. I would say that it depends. If you're cleaning the kitchen and it bothers you that even a half a bag of garbage you want the kitchen clean, then l'chora that will be a graf shel rei too. If it's half a garbage thing and it goes under the sink and you don't see it, it doesn't smell, okay, maybe. But again, if something's bothering you, then you would say that it is allowed. There's a machlokas achronim. What if you have a way to move a graf shel rei indirectly? You don't have to move it directly. Can you? Is it totally what we call hutra or techuya? So Rav Shlomo Zalman in Shulchan Shlomo says it's directly. You can move it directly. Mutar lotziam la'ashpa. Ma'ashpa deino chayav l'taltam en atzad. O begufo. Mishum dechashiv keheter v'lo dichui. It's mutar. Rav Moshe, Rav Ovadia seem to say, the Alka Yosef seem to say that maybe it's better indirectly. B'makam says Rav Moshe. B'makam shiachal l'gara de sakin. If you can move it with a knife. Let's say you have some of the shells on the table. Okay, fine. What about creating a graf shel rei? Most of the time you don't have a choice. The child, you have to change the child's diaper, and you have a full garbage bag. But the Gemara talks about, is there a problem? Let's say I have a couple of different shells on the table. So does it bother me so much? But now I'm going to move them all together because I'm cleaning up the table and I'm creating a graf sharei. Is that an issue? Creating a graf sharei? So the Gemara ends on source 67. Kuf Mem Gimel. The Gemara has a line where the Gemara has a rhetorical question that's unanswered. Can you make a graf sharei l'chadchila? And the Gemara doesn't answer that. As if, is that okay? Is that okay? But the Gemara in Beit Salamid Vav seems to be so. The Gemara there seems to say, beferish, that yes, you can make a graf sharei. Because there the Gemara talks about how Abaya was having a leak in his house somewhere. And Rabbah says, go bring your bed into the room with the leak. And then, it'll bother you, then you'll be able to move it. So, creating a graf sharei. That's what the story. Beit Salam and Vav. Beirechaya davaya doluf. It was leaking. Aslakami de Rabba. Amarle zil ayle lepurech lazam. Bring your bed in to let me graf sharei va'afke. Abaya says, 1 second. Can you create a graf sharei? And meanwhile, the whole thing collapsed. That was leaking, and he says, "Oi, I shouldn't have questioned my Rebbe." I'm going to question. So it sounds like from there that there's no problem with creating graf sharei, and that's what Tosfos wonders. How do you put these two Gemaras together? Shabbos Kuf Mem Gimel seems to say, rhetorically, without answering, you shouldn't create the graf sharei l'chadchila, while Beit Salam and Vav says, no problem. So Tosfos has two answers. Number one, hefsid, b'makam hefsid, Abaya was losing financial hefsid. Or number two, really in the Abaya case, he wasn't creating a graf sharei. The leak was there. He was just putting himself into a position that it would bother him. That you're allowed to do. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. The Shulchan Aruch says that maybe you shouldn't create a graf sharei l'chadchila, meaning if it's in a place where it's not bothering you, so let it be there. Just don't use that spot. But l'maisa, in almost all cases, we're not choosing to create the graf sharei. Right? We're not choosing. And therefore, you're allowed to eat nuts and shells and chicken. You'll eat anything. And then on the table, what do you have? You're cleaning up. You clean it up in the normal fashion. Rashai Adam, says the Aruch HaShabbos, summarizing, top of 288. Rashai Adam lechol yad hashulchan. Ma'achalim, you're allowed to eat foods. Asher apsola shalem Muktzeh, that the leftovers, the psols of them will be Muktzeh. Al smachshi talena acharkach, and I'm going to move it afterwards. Because chedesh graf sharei. Vein zekala beisar as he's graf sharei l'chadchila. That's not a problem of creating a graf sharei. Kivichu asik ba'achila. I'm eating. I'm not trying to create a graf sharei. It happens to be memela. After I eat, it's left there. So that wouldn't be a problem. So Lamaisa, this discussed many of the muksas that we have discussed. In the next year, we have one more shiur, I think, or one or two shiurim relating to Inyani Muktzeh. We have in front of us to discuss Basas L'Davar Ha'asr and many practical applications of Muktzeh. And if I need to move Muktzeh, how do I move it? Moving it directly is only Kli Shamachta L'Isla Sarach Gufal Sarach Bakomo, Kli Shamachta L'Heter, maybe even Mechama L'Tzel. But all other muksas you can't move directly. We spoke about many of them, but graf sharei is definitely a built-in heter that we hold of. If you just look in the different machshav at the end of this year, which every year has, we usually don't discuss it, he quotes from a Kabbalistic source, the Shivat Sion, that every hour on Shabbos is equivalent to 170 million hours during the week. Thinking about what, sometimes you get paid overtime. It pays to work overtime because you get paid double and triple. This is you get paid 170 million times. Wow. That's the Shivat Sion. He quotes that. You have it there on page 289. Okay, we will stop here. By the Shem. Next time we'll pick up with shiur number 7 in our volume 20 as we continue our march through Hilchot Shabbos. Baruch Hashem.